All right, welcome in. A very happy Thursday here. Week 7 of the college football season is upon us, and we've got a couple of pretty good games here tonight, one of which we will talk about. We'll visit the SEC, we'll visit the Big Ten, and of course, we'll have a roundtable on a big SEC battle coming up here as well. There's another Big Ten battle here, and we've got our Thursday crew in the house. Well, part of it, and then some homeless guy. Bryan Power in the house, as is Drew Martin and Rob Veno. Always a pleasure to see you three gentlemen. Actually, Drew and Rob, pleasure to see you guys. We'll start with a game here tonight. Coastal Carolina taking on JMU. And Bryan Power, you can say JMU, right? You know what that stands for. That's James Madison University, BP. Yes, I hope you know, because it's Sun Belt, right up your alley. You love this conference. You love these teams. Grayson McCall not walking through the door for the Chanticleer. Do you know what a Chanticleer is, Bryan Power? You have any idea?
Yeah, I forget that, actually. I know James Madison was our fourth president. I was going to get into that with you. Remember, Madison, M.A. before M.O. Monroe.
That's it's a giant cock is what I was getting at, Bryan Power. That's what a Chanticleer is. So why don't you take it from there again?
Maybe I should have known.
Break down the Chanticleers for us. So go ahead. Go. What do you got?
45 minutes to you this, Joe? I'll tell you what. As far as being homeless, they said I could watch this game over your house tonight. I can't wait. I'll be over. I'll bring the beer, okay? All right. Anyway, JMU is off a terrible loss to Louisiana Monroe. Shout out to Brian Vincent, by the way, Joe. I would like to shout out the Louisiana Monroe coach, because he should be the coach at UAB instead of the hideous Trent Dilfer, but that is a different show for a different day. We can talk about that. Now, JMU did finish, that's James Madison for those keeping score at home, they did finish with a 399 to 257 edge in total yards last week, but the game really swung on an 82-yard fumble return for a touchdown, which gave ULM a lead they would never relinquish. Pretty shocking, I thought, Joe, that this JMU offense that we watched put up 133 total points in 2 games. They did not get to the end zone over the final 3 quarters against ULM. Turned the ball over on downs 4 different times. Obviously, in modern football, 4th down variance is huge in a lot of these close games. That, when you allow a defensive score, it's how you lose outright as a 3-score road favorite. Now, normally, I might come on here and say, hey, phony loss like that, somewhat phony loss. Dukes are in a good spot to bounce back, but I don't know here, Joe. That loss, I think it might linger, if you will, because it pretty much discredits them from any discussion of getting the G5 spot in the college football playoff, right? They're not going to put someone in that lost to ULM, even if you do go on and win the Sun Belt. So you got to wonder where the players' minds are heading in this game with Coastal Carolina, who you know is going to be out for revenge. 47-7, 56-14 they've lost to JMU the last 2 years. And no Grayson McCall, but quarterback Ethan Vasco is pretty good, Joe. Career high 367 passing yards. Last time out, 3 touchdowns. This is an offense. It's averaged 8 yards per play against Old Dominion. But the real key for Coastal will be the defense. I do like the secondary. The quarterback for JMU, Barnett, has not been particularly accurate, has he? Completed only 43% of his pass attempts last time out. So I think the underdog keeps it close, Joe. Coastal is 12-5 against the number of their last 17 tries as an underdog. So the Cocks keep it close.
Yeah, nobody knows that quite like you, BP. That's a quality game here tonight to kick off this Thursday edition. We appreciate the input as always there. So we welcome in Drew Martin.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was actually kidding. Drew Martin, always a pleasure to see you here, my man, as we have a more stable group of teams ready to go here with South Carolina taking on Alabama. Nobody knows the SEC quite like you, my friend. South Carolina, a little disappointing showing against Ole Miss last week. Bama, of course, still trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Good news for Bama is, listen, just don't lose another game and you're in the playoff, right? That's all that matters this year with some of these teams. But what are the chances South Carolina gives them a fight in this game?
I think there's a pretty good chance, Joe. I mean, 3 touchdowns anyway to stay within that number. And we're talking about what a sort of gamecock again here. It's interesting the Carolinas kind of go with that type of bird. It's funny hearing you and BP talk about it. Yeah, I've done my research on the Chanticleer as well, and that was very well said by you, Joe. But talking about this type of gamecock, I guess USC, you could make the argument, is actually the better defense. I mean, they just held Ole Miss under 4 touchdowns. They average letting up 40 yards per game less than the Alabama defense does. And we bring up the Alabama team. I mean, what a roller coaster this Crimson Tide team has been on, knocking off Georgia and then coming back the next week and losing to Vanderbilt. But looking into the statistics, Joe, something happened there. The halftime of the Georgia game, I mean, when you look at, they had that lead. They did come back at the very end to win. But their defense gave up over 340 yards in the second half alone to Georgia. And then we saw what happened to Vanderbilt. I mean, Iago Paglia making plays and scoring points against this Alabama defense. So I think there's something to be had here against Bama defensively. And can South Carolina do it offensively? I don't know. There's a big question mark there. But defensively, I think they could hold their own against this Alabama defense. So trusting Alabama here, laying 3 touchdowns. Going to follow up last week's bet with Vanderbilt plus the points. Go again with it. South Carolina plus the points here, guys. Plus 21. Let's go with the Gamecocks here to stay within 3 touchdowns, Joe.
Yeah, Drew, this is where we get to the point where the Saban effect, right? Not saying DeBar's a bad coach, but, Saban after a loss, probably we could have taken out a second and third mortgage and been like, let's head towards Alabama in this one. But we're going to see if he's got the same kind of effect here on this Alabama team. We'll see if they come out angry. But I'm kind of with you. That's an awful lot of points for this team that just lost to Vanderbilt. We'll see what can get done on that one there. Another big game for a team not exactly living up to what we thought they might be or what we're used to, Rob Veno, as we head to the Big Ten with Washington traveling now to Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes there with Kurt Ferentz. And is it me, Robert? This is just not the same elite Iowa defense that we have gotten in years past here. Well, everyone was so focused on the offense being better. Well, I mean, it couldn't have got any worse. You average more than 3 points a game, you got a better offense. Congratulations, Iowa. Let's celebrate mediocrity. But Washington is actually, I think, better than people have given it credit for. Tough place to play coming there in Iowa. What do you think we're going to get?
Well, I'll start by saying I'm just thankful that I wasn't assigned to break down and analyze a giant cock.
Yes.
Leave that to my
Good point.
2 predecessors there
Good
to
point.
do the job. I don't know if a Hawkeye fits into that category, but I'm not going to go there because I'm no expert in that stuff. Maybe a giant cock has a Hawkeye. Who knows? I'm going to start this way. Could you play 3 more mirror image like teams in a row than Washington is going to play when they face Iowa? I mean, you went to Rutgers, played Rutgers, flew home, played Michigan, fly again, go play Iowa. They're the same team in different uniforms. It's unbelievable. I mean, each of the same, pound and establish the run, play tight physical defense. So Washington certainly has seen their share of so-called Big Ten football already this season. Will the travel schedule start to wear on them, Joe? It's kind of early still, but again, all the way to Piscataway. Or, Piscataway.
Mm-hmm,
Rutgers, East Rutherford is the Giants. Then back to the Pacific Northwest. Now into Iowa City to play an 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Pacific time game. Maybe the schedule's a little rough. Can they handle 3 straight extreme physical matchups without a break in between? It's tough to line up and pound it out in the trenches with these teams 3 weeks in a row. Maybe a bye week would have been nice, but still, it's early in the season, maybe not. I'll agree with you this way. Washington may be a lot better than people think. I mean, I'm never, ever pushing Jed Fish in his first year as a head coach in college because I think his playbook is a little extreme. It's hard for guys to get a grasp of. It took Arizona a year, but they got it. It seems like Washington with a new group has gotten it really quickly. Against Rutgers, 314 passing yards, 207 rushing yards. Who does that against Rutgers? 521 for the game, almost 8 a pop. Last week against Michigan, 315 passing yards, 114 on the ground, 429 total, 6.3 a pop. And their defense was great as well. Only give up 299 total yards to Rutgers, only give up 287 to Michigan. That puts them, I know Ralph Michaels, our buddy colleague, likes to use these differential numbers, plus 222 total yard differential the last 2 weeks against Rutgers and Michigan. That is a large, large number. I think the key here is the passing game. Will Rogers, the Mississippi State transfer, has come in and lit it up. And both of those games against those two teams, they're identical. 315 and 314 passing. Why not 315 again against Iowa? And the defense held those other two teams that can't throw the football, right? Michigan can't throw it. Rutgers can't throw it. They only got 115 and 113 respectively. Cade McNamara and Iowa really don't throw it. So it sets up really well for this team. Will Rogers, 47 of 67, 70% completions, 4 TDs, only 1 pick in those 2 games. I could go on and on about these numbers, but I'll add this. To your point, Joe, of Iowa maybe not being the same elite type defense, against these 3 teams this year, Iowa State, Minnesota, and Ohio State, let's leave Illinois State and Troy out of the equation.
Yep.
They only have 7 quarterback hurries and 1 sack against 3 good teams. I mean, if you're not going to pressure Will Rogers, he gets rid of it so quick, you're probably going to be in a little bit of trouble. They faced a Greg Schiano defense. They faced a Wink Martindale pressure-style defense. I know Phil Parker's good, but is he any better than those 2 guys? I don't think so. So all the fundamentals to me come up Washington. Again, the scary part here is this fatigue issue. Could travel fatigue hurt them? Could physical fatigue hurt them? Could emotional fatigue? You just played a rematch of the national championship. Could that hurt them? It keeps me off the side. But it won't keep me off the total, Joe. This thing's low. And probably too low. Because, like you said, Iowa's somewhat a reversal, right? They're a little better offensively. They're a little worse defensively. And how about this? In the Rutgers game, that game got to 39 points. Why did it only get to 39 points? UW missed 3 field goals, had a turnover on downs at the Rutgers 2, had a turnover on downs at the Rutgers 37. They probably should have got reasonably 6 to 10 more. Puts that over the number we're asking for here. Last week, they get the 44 against Michigan, over the number we're asked for here. Iowa's got 1 defensive touchdown all season long. You know what that means? That means they've scored 95 points against decent teams, and only 1 was a defensive score. So the offense is doing it. I think over the total here, Joe, 42 is probably a safer way to go. Rogers continues on, and Iowa probably gets enough to get this thing over.
It was 3, and now it's 2.5. And I'm with you, Rob. I mean, the numbers tell me Washington's a better team. If it wasn't for Kurt Ferentz after a loss being 48-26-2 against the number, I don't know who the hell's betting Iowa. I mean, that's really the only reason on the side at that point is like, well, Ferentz usually gets guys to bounce back, but it doesn't feel like that same kind of Iowa defense that's going to be able to slow down a very good Washington offense with a pretty good Washington head coach that actually can score some points on you there, Rob. I'm with you. I think the over 2 is not a bad look here. All right, so we got a couple of games in the books here. We're going to go round table on 2 of the bigger games during this week here. We're going to talk Texas OU as well as Penn State USC. And of course, you guys know how this thing works. If you're joining us for the first time in a college football kickoff show, those of you joining us live, any questions about any games on this Week 7 slate, drop them in the chat room while you're joining us here. We'll get to as many as we can and ask these guys their thoughts on some of the games you're interested in. If you're watching it on the rewatch, just drop it in the comment section, as we are going to keep an eye on the comment section and give you as much feedback as possible right up till kickoff. And while you're there, do the thing with the buttons there. That, what do you got, a thumb or something, or a giant? Is it a giant thumb, Brian? I thought you would know better than anybody. You giant Chanticleer, you. So let's start here, guys, if we can. Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. Let's start with one of the interesting games here facing the number one team in the country. Texas taking on Oklahoma I was corrected by Marco on Bet on it yesterday because I mistakenly referred to it as the Red River Shootout, and then I was slapped on the hand because apparently that's not politically correct anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and instead say it's the damn Red River Shootout. It's been like that when I went to Oklahoma State in the Big 8. It's always going to be the Red River Shootout. Take it and shove it. In the meantime, Brian, you can call it whatever you want. But tell me your thoughts, because I've been to this. I've been to the Cotton Bowl when this thing is played. It's the Texas Fair. It's an absolute shit show from beginning to end. The game is a shit show. Everything about the event is absolute pandemonium. So what are we going to get here? These two teams here, obviously not on the same pace. Certainly not offensively, BP with OU, but that doesn't mean they can't win this game. They are getting over 2 touchdowns. What do you think we're going to get?
Well, no matter what you want to call it, sounds like my kind of event, Joe, from your description there.
Correct.
Now, history certainly suggests it will be a close game. 9 of the last 10 meetings between Texas and Oklahoma decided by 1 possession. I think it was a 22-0 Texas win. That was the exception there. This time, Joe, I really worry about the Sooners passing game. You got a freshman QB, and they are thin at receiver due to injuries. You look at where they are at offensively, 117th in the country in EPA, a Power 4 worst, 13 plays of 20 or more yards. They are converting less than 27% on third down is OU. The Sooners should have lost to Drew Martin's Auburn Tigers a couple weeks ago. Peyton Thorne doesn't throw that back-breaking pick 6. I think it's a different result. And you look at the Sooners' defense, okay, they're very good at forcing turnovers, including that pick 6. They forced 13 to be exact so far, Joe. And Texas has given it away 7 times. But turnover margin is not something you can just rely on. Quinn Ewers is back for Texas. That probably means the Longhorns offense takes better care of the football. And if that's the case, I don't see Oklahoma scoring a ton in this game. So I'm going to look at them under the team total of 17.5, Joe. Doesn't necessarily mean Oklahoma won't cover. For Oklahoma to cover, it's got to be a low-scoring game. No mistake about it. I just don't trust the Sooners offense. So it seems low when you hear the name Oklahoma, but I'm saying Oklahoma under 17.5. I do not trust this passing game against an elite defense out of Austin, Texas.
Oh, you have little faith here, BP. That's what it sounds like to me. You don't think they're going to have enough offensive firepower in order to be able to get it done. And yeah, I don't blame you. Drew, talk to me here about this game. 17.5 for a team total. What are you thinking we're going to get here in the Red River? Call it what you want.
I guess what we're supposed to call it the Red River rivalry, right? And I guess we're on YouTube, so I'll go Red River Shootout with you, Joe Ranieri, like we're drinking beers before it at the Texas festival here. But hey, Cotton Bowl, 3:30. It's going to be a big one. Texas, Oklahoma, guys. I'm picking up a lot of what BP was laying down. You know, at my first glance, I'm like, man, Texas is really good. Good coaching. Quarterback situation seems to be getting where it needs to be. But this number is big, guys, and it is a huge rivalry there. Going back, 2022, Texas, blew them out 49-0. Last year, Oklahoma comes back 34-30. Both teams are off of a bye, and I think that that's a key part of this handicap, because when you bring in, 14 and a hook now at most sports books, as we're talking right now, it's the largest favorite for the Longhorns since, 2005? Oh, by the way, they also won the national championship that year. BP just talked about Texas's defense. I do agree with them. But looking at the other side, Oklahoma's defense has actually been really good as well, guys. They're holding their opponents 91 yards less than their opponent's average on the season. I love that statistic. The offenses that you're facing, how are you doing in comparison to the other defenses that are facing them as well? Oklahoma's defense is playing very well. We saw them against Tennessee. That Tennessee offense can really move the football. Not so much against the Sooners. So, hey, if they can hold up defensively, look at this total. It's 50. And yet the spread is 14 and a hook. It's not a big total by any means. And that's more than 2 touchdowns, guys. Also, lastly here, Joe, and maybe more importantly, something that's making me think the dog is barking in this one. Freshman quarterback Hawkins, he did make his first start against Auburn and then had a bye week last week. That's a situation that you're not going to be able to find many trends on that. But when a kid gets experience and then has extra preparation time to go back with the coaches and kind of work on the things he did wrong, a lot of times you'll see a better athlete in that next game. It's not like he's going to light it up against Texas, because I do think Texas's defense is very good, but I would look for improvement there. I like that situation. This is probably not going to make the client card by any means, but getting that hook on the 14, I actually think Boomer Sooner stays within 2 touchdowns, Joe.
It's a good point, Drew, because listen, if nothing else with these rivalry games, and anything is possible, that's a lot of points and we've seen this before where there's been very good Oklahoma teams and not very good, shall we say, Texas teams, and you still go into that game and it's like, holy crap, it's out of control. It's an absolute firefight. So, getting over 2 touchdowns, I'm with you. That hook is pretty valuable there. And Veno, normally we wouldn't even look at an under or thinking about sweating an under here. Bryan Power's got a point, though. Do we trust OU to score enough to even look at the total in this matchup? How do you approach it?
Yeah, this show is so educational, Joe, because just being here for like 25 minutes, I've now also learned that Bryan Power thoroughly enjoys shit shows.
Yes.
So take him to the carnival, throw him on the giant Ferris wheel with some cotton candy down there in Dallas, and we got a happy guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with him.
Don't give Joe any ideas, Rob.
It's a great idea. Too late. Too late.
Everybody watch your screen close. They'll be hand in hand on Saturday. I tell you, under doesn't come out of my mouth an awful lot, but I do agree totally with Bryan. I agree a lot with what Drew said. Let me just emphasize one point that Drew was making about Michael Hawkins having an extra week off to kind of understand the offense, and combine it with Bryan's point about how Oklahoma can't throw the football. They got a bunch of coordinators here, right? But the passing game coordinator is Seth Luttrell. We know Seth Luttrell knows what's going on when it comes to throwing the football. So maybe some work with Hawkins, who seems to be a little more of a dual threat. You have to prepare a little more for him in the run game than you do Jackson Arnold. So maybe they come up with something here. To the point of Texas's defense, it's been great. The competition stinks so far. I mean, and it's hard because Oklahoma pretty much stinks too right now. So it's hard to make a case for them doing what these other teams couldn't do. UTSA was horrendous, only got 7. UL Monroe, they can't play offense, only got 3. Mississippi State, struggling, got 13. Colorado State, shutout. The Michigan game, 31-12. Texas kind of broke free in the second half. I don't know how Michigan threw for 204 in that game, but they did. They only ran for 80, but they threw for 204. A lot of it's in catch-up mode. And they lose by 19, so you're taking this 15-point number into consideration here. Can Oklahoma squeeze under 15? It's possible because of the rivalry situation, because of the bye week situation, a whole lot of things. And then the last thing I'll add is it's Quinn Ewers' first game back. Does he come back rusty or rested? That's always the question. We can answer it 20/20 hindsight after the game's over. But he certainly is the better option at quarterback right now. Not that Manning is not a good quarterback, but I think Ewers is probably the better of the two at this point. It all leads back to both defenses may have the most success on the field here. 31-12 in the Michigan game, totaled 43. To me, this is somewhat similar. I always like to do comparable games, and I think that one's pretty comparable here. If you add a touchdown onto that, you get the 50 and you're still under. I don't think I have very much else to add to what these guys have already said, but I think if I'm looking, I'm going to look under, and I don't want to touch the side because you're just too afraid of Oklahoma offensively at this point in time. You just don't know what they're going to give. And once again, to Bryan's point, depending upon takeaways is not a game plan. It's just not a game plan every week of the year. So we'll see how it goes, but I would look under 50.5.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to look any other way. Texas can do some damage, but they're going to have to do all the heavy lifting to get up and over in that number. And I'm with you. I just don't see that happening in that game. So the Red River rivalry / shootout, Chanticleer, whatever you want to call it there, that is one in the books. We got another big game coming up in the Big Ten. Feels kind of weird to say it. And it's got to feel kind of weird for Penn State, who now has to hop on a plane and go west here to take on USC, something we're not often used to seeing unless it was going to be in the Rose Bowl or some craziness along those lines. But BP, here we are, USC. Got a little taste of some travel, had to go to Minnesota, took on a very good Minnesota defense and didn't work out all that well for them, but now they get to go home. And I don't know, I keep watching Penn State. The market keeps laying these obnoxious numbers. They continue not to cover it. I don't think they're that great. Everyone seems to love Penn State here. Do we like them enough to hop on a plane, fly across country, and beat USC in a bounce back spot? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, when James Franklin doesn't have even the opportunity to, cash in those late backdoor touchdowns, something may be awry in State College. Now, to your initial point, Joe, conference realignment has obviously been such a big talking point these last few seasons in college football. I've got no issue with it personally. I like new matchups like this in the regular season. But coming into the season, what I was really interested in, particularly Big Ten and ACC, is how these teams would perform on these long road trips, like what Penn State has in front of them right here. Well, in the case of the Big Ten, Joe, I think we're starting to get an answer. Small sample size still, but let's talk about this. And this applies to that. Rob was hinting at this too when he was breaking down that Washington-Iowa game a little bit ago. Teams traveling 2 time zones in the Big Ten, whether it's east to west or west to east, are just 1-7 straight up so far in conference play. And that lone win was an Indiana team, much improved over Kurt Cignetti, as we all know, going to UCLA, who's obviously atrocious, and if not for Purdue, would be the worst team in the Big Ten. And USC, Joe, like you mentioned, they know the trend well. What's happened over the last 3 weeks? They've gone east twice and lost to a Michigan team that basically runs a service academy offense. And then Minnesota last week. The Trojans have not won a game in the central or eastern time zones since September of 2012 against Syracuse, at least regular season. But they get this one at home this week at the Coliseum, as we know. Am I a little concerned with the USC defense, who is improved, obviously, this season? But they couldn't stop the run against either Michigan or Minnesota, and they knew it was coming. You knew Michigan wasn't going to pass the ball with Orgy, and Minnesota, they're always a run-first offense. So, yeah, that is a little concerning. But given the trend I just laid out, and the fact that USC is getting more than a field goal here at home, I've got to side with the dog. Joe, I have a soft spot in my heart, always will, for quarterback Miller Moss. We backed him last December in the Holiday Bowl, his first career start, throw 6 touchdown passes for me against Louisville. And you mentioned it, since the opener against WVU, where the money went against Penn State, the Nittany Lions have just not been impressive. They struggled to beat Bowling Green. They struggled to beat Illinois. Took a while to get going last week at home against UCLA, who stinks. And James Franklin's whining about the size of runways now.
Yeah.
That sounds like he's trying to maybe create an excuse or two. Go ahead to the Coliseum. Give me USC plus the points.
Taking it was 5.5 too. Now starting to see some 5, so the market is agreeing with you there, BP. So is G Hurt, by the way, who said he wanted to talk about that whole cross-country travel and teams losing. He's got it as 2-8 cross-country straight up, with Indiana and Miami the only winners to have crossed over time zones here so far in the schedule for that to happen. It's a great point, G. Hurt. He also points out that Penn State is on the, oh, hell no, am I betting on them laying points going across the country? And I can't argue with him there either. Drew, kind of tough to trust Penn State in this fight. They haven't been trustworthy all year long. 5.5 here, but how much confidence do you have in USC in this one?
It's waning a little bit, Joe. It really is. After watching them against Minnesota there, not looking all that great, losing as the favorite outright. I thought those were some great stats from BP in the comment there. I mean, 1-7, 2-8. Also love it, against the spread, watching how these teams travel across country. We got to remember, it's not the NFL travel. This is college football. It is a little bit different. Granted, it's not terrible travel. They're not taking Spirit flights across country, but these trends you got to watch, guys, because they are 18 to 24-year-old kids. Joe, you bring up the last time they played, it feels like the Rose Bowl. Yeah, actually it was 2017 in the Rose Bowl. Over 1,000 yards of offense in that game. That was one I remember betting on. Coming into this one, I don't think we're going to get to 1,000 yards of offense total, but I think we're going to get more than 50.5 points here. I really do. I mean, I do think, this USC offense is going to be able to move the football, particularly at home. In Penn State, last week, they didn't have the running back Singleton. He had over 250 yards in the first 4 games. We saw him struggle a little bit against UCLA, at least not kind of being that offensive firepower that we've seen. And without him, sure enough, they only had 85 yards on the ground. So if he's playing, which I think he will, I think that will help the Nittany Lion offense. You bring up good points, Joe, in terms of, is Penn State that good? But still, we got to bring up the James Franklin, against the spread stats. 21-10 ATS run as a road fave. That is something to pay attention to. If he gets the spot to cover a number, he's going to look to do so. Sidewise, I think it's tough. I really do. I think this is a good learning kind of contest, particularly for Penn State. Is this team good or are they not? USC's defense is improved this season, just 16 points per game, 117 yards less than last year's defense was giving up. Overall, Joe, I think with Singleton coming back for Penn State and Lincoln Riley, which I know Rob Veno knows, he's got a heck of an overrun going. I'm sure Rob will throw that out there. I'm going to pay attention to that. I think both teams score here. I think we get some, good weather in Southern California. Low total here of 50. I think we get into, the mid to upper 50s, possibly even 60s. I like it towards the over, Joe.
You liking the over there, Drew? A lot of guys in the chat rooms also giving the thumbs up on the over. I believe Starchild as well doesn't want to touch the side, says he likes this game to go over 50.5. Always good to see you in there, Starchild. Pleasure. How about it, Rob Veno? Are you buying Penn State in this one? Is it an over spot for you? I think Drew Lar is just so overrated. It's not even funny. But what do you think? The market loves him. They can certainly run the ball. We know USC's defense, once again, I think they're giving up 5.5, 6 yards a touch to running back. So, yeah, yes, it should be an over, but how convinced are you in this one?
Notes here. Number one.
Go ahead.
Number one on the list was exactly what Drew's referred to. And I'll just credit Ralph for this going back 3 weeks ago, making us all aware of it. I'll read it to you since it's happened a couple times over the last couple of weeks. Lincoln Riley, as a head coach, no matter where he's been, East Carolina, Oklahoma, USC, he's now 51-30 over the total in his 81 games as a head coach. He's 7-1 over the total when the posted total is less than 58. Last week was the first loss in that category when they only got to 41 against Minnesota. The average margin that Lincoln Riley games exceed the total by since he's become a head coach is still double digits. So 50.5, it's less than 58. He's a great over coach. He's even better when it's under 58. It just, if you're just going to play technical trends, which I don't, but you can add that to your handicap. That's a technical trend that'll help you out here. I'm going to say this. Let me just address James Franklin first. If James Franklin didn't try so hard to go out of his way to cover point spreads to appease his fan base, which overwhelmingly despises him, then he wouldn't be the head coach here. It's the only reason he stays around, because he covers some spreads, because the fan base doesn't like the guy, and already complaining about having to fly to Los Angeles. Give me a break. But I'm going to defend them a little bit in their last 2 games against Illinois and UCLA, where they only put up 21 and 27 points. And I really think, guys, it's due to the fact that you got to trudge along in these tortoise-like games against them. Brett Bielema doesn't want to go anywhere. If he could run a play every 5 minutes, he'd run a play every 5 minutes. UCLA can't go anywhere. They don't even know what they're doing. If they could run a play every 10 minutes, they'd do it. So you got the number 91 tempo, the number 123 tempo, no explosiveness to speak of on either team, and you get limited possessions. So you do the best you can. You wind up with 27 and 21. Obviously, neither one of those teams offensively had a passing game to fear. Joe, you mentioned this. USC knew they could stack the box.
Yep.
And even still, these teams did a little damage against them. So with Nicholas Singleton averaging 7 a carry, you have to believe Penn State's got way more explosiveness than either one of these teams, maybe both of those teams put together. So it figures to play more into USC's hands here, a little more wide open. I don't think Penn State minds trying to make big plays. Drew Aller, to your point, Joe, he doesn't look impressive. It's 71% completions on the year. It's way better than what he was last year. And if they can run against this USC defense, it probably sets him up a little bit. And just to further the point about USC and that defense, the last time they had to play, I don't know, can you call Wisconsin anybody with a backup quarterback? Wisconsin rattled off 21 first-half points against that defense with a backup quarterback. So I don't trust their D whatsoever. But what I do trust is Miller Moss to test this Nittany Lions secondary, because look at the 5 teams that Penn State has played so far. The best passing offense they faced is Bowling Green. Are we nuts? Connor Bazelak, the ex-Missouri guy at quarterback, 52 in the nation in passing. Everybody else is 80th or worse. That's not USC. Miller Moss has thrown against good defenses already. I think he throws here. To me, the number's too low. I'm in line right behind Drew. I think it goes over 50.5.
Going over 50.5. This certainly feels like this is a big battle. I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, BP, but this feels like a battle of two coaches that might just be the most overrated in the country. I can't think of anything but more overrated than Lincoln Riley and James Franklin, and I don't get it. Unfortunately, somebody's got to win the game. But to these two guys, it's kind of hard to bet either one of them separately, and now they're going head-to-head. It's even harder to figure out who I trust less.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these two programs could both recruit well, and that's why when you've got the shelf stocked, when you've got talent, you're going to win. To Rob talked a little bit about how the Penn State fan base, he would know about Franklin. And yeah, Riley, I mean, this team in Southern California is underperformed for years. They have the defense figured out a little bit better this year. Lynn has upgraded that unit, but yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, it's going to be off my card. While I lean USC because of the travel trend, it is to your point, Joe, off my card because it's a tough match. I don't know if USC deserved to drop out of the top 25 though after just one loss. I mean, I know I'm not a huge PJ Fleck guy, but was that an overreaction? I don't know. I'm interested. We're obviously watching this game. It's a big one, but we shall see, I guess. Again, it's a lot of points to lay on the road when you got to travel, and teams are not traveling well in the Big Ten so far.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very strange game across the board here with two coaches that, don't necessarily love what we're seeing from them. All right, we got a couple of other questions that I saw that came in here in TikTok as well as Instagram here. We'll start with Titan CT, though. He's got an interesting question. Drew, how about it? Kentucky taking on Vandy. Vandy, after the upset of the century, wants to know whether or not they should bet the mortgage on this game here. What is he betting? Is he betting Kentucky, Vandy? Is he betting the over? What the hell are you betting, Titan CT? And do we think Vandy gets crushed? That's a real defense with Kentucky, Drew. That's a top 5 defense in this guy. Good luck, Vandy, trying to score like you did against Alabama. That Kentucky defense is real. What are you thinking?
I mean, spot-wise, it definitely points towards Kentucky. No doubt about it, Joe. I mean, biggest win in Vanderbilt history. I believe they were 0-60 versus top 5 college football teams until this past Saturday. Now, a great game overall. I do think Vanderbilt is on the come-up here, guys. Their quarterback, Pavia, he's a guy I like to bet on. If you watch New Mexico State at all last season, he's running around. To tell you the truth, he's the type of quarterback that you want. I believe the guy he looked up to growing up was Johnny Manziel, and he plays like Johnny Manziel, making plays with his feet like that. So it's kind of a volatile handicap with the Commodores. I like Clark Lee as a head coach. I really do, Joe. I mean, I feel like he's building this program the way that you should. It's just tough to bet on him in this spot. It really is. Spot totally towards Kentucky. To tell you the truth, Kentucky's defense is probably better than Alabama's. So in terms of what Vanderbilt is facing defensively, it's a huge step up in class. Plus the fact you're going on the road. Lexington's going to be ready for you. It's not like you're sneaking up on them now. So spot points towards Kentucky, but I'm not looking to go against Vanderbilt, Joe. I'm really not. I know they lost that one to a Sun Belt team. I believe it was Georgia State. But other than that, they've played really good football throughout the season. That Alabama game, it was a little bit fluky to win outright. But, hey, if you're watching, the show, I was on Vandy plus the points. And it was something that, you could kind of see coming. This is not your grandma's Vanderbilt here, Joe. So I'm not looking to go against Vandy.
Oh, I like it. We've got Daryl Turner talking about the Commodores like candy in that first half, especially on the money line there, an opportunity to cash in because a lot of people are going to look to fade them for sure in this spot in a letdown. But the truth says he's not looking to run to the window to go against them in any way, shape, or form. I don't know there, BP, if I'm looking to go to the window and fade Clemson's offense anytime soon. They got a game against Wake, and call me crazy, but if you are going to play any team total this week, maybe Clemson's might be the one that you want to look at and play, given the fact that they're averaging, 40 or plus more a game now? I mean, Clemson has been, outside of that Georgia game, unstoppable. And I think a lot of that had to do because Dabo finally got the hell out of the way and let Riley actually call the plays that he wanted to call. So it doesn't feel like Wake is going to have a lot of success in this game. I don't know. Clemson, bet them up and over. I mean, they're laying 3 touchdowns, but with that offense, how the hell can you be afraid to lay it?
Yeah, maybe a team total. I don't like laying, this many on the road, Joe, as you know. But, yeah, I would look at Clemson. And remember, it's not just the game. It wasn't the game against Georgia they played bad. It was just the second half. And There was a massive overreaction to that one half of poor football. I looked at that. The pollsters moved Clemson way too far down. This is a team, obviously, with its entire destiny still in front of them. If they win out, they're going to, obviously, they would still win the ACC. They're in the playoff. The ACC can get 2 teams, Clemson and your Miami Hurricanes. I would not step in front of Clemson right now. I have them power rated as the best team in the ACC, even still better than Miami. So, I think a team total over is probably your best look rather than laying it because you don't want a disinterested defense at the end of the game backdooring you and you cursing at the television.
I agree. Yeah, I'm expecting huge numbers from Clemson's offense. They still have another gear, I think, when it's all said and done. Rob Veno, we got one final question for you having to do with, I don't know, is BYU any good? They're taking on Arizona, and a lot of people seem to think Arizona is crap, but is BYU any good is my question, Vino. They seem to be enjoying the season so far, although that schedule is interesting. But I don't know. What do we do with BYU here? How serious do we take them?
Well, I think I'm starting to take them pretty serious, Joe. I mean, the head coach, you were talking about head coaches that are overrated. Here's one that's not overrated whatsoever. Sataki's a really good head coach. And you know what? On the other side of the field, Brent Brennan, the ex-San Jose State head coach who's now running the Arizona program, I have a lot of respect for at San Jose State too, but that offense is just good enough to get you from 20 to 20, and then somehow Noah Fafita figures out a way to screw it up at quarterback, and they turn 7s into 3s or 0s as well as anybody at this point in time. So I don't know exactly what's going on there offensively, Joe. It's a lot of the same personnel. There's a couple differences on the offensive line. Wide receiver McMillan, for sure, is a top 15 NFL draft choice, but it seems like teams are paying all attention to him, and Fafita doesn't want to come off of him and go to anybody else. And BYU's playing pretty good defense. I don't consider their QB to be in the upper stratosphere, but man, they're doing enough with that offensive line and they're scoring enough points where I'm somewhat afraid of them. But all that said, there's no way in heck I want to lay points. I understand there's some altitude here and that crowd in Provo can be rough. And I just explained how I don't like the way Fafita is playing offense at this point in time, at least in terms of turning scores or good drives into scores. Hasn't converted a lot of touchdowns here. So this is extremely tough. Probably one that wouldn't make my card. I don't know. 49 is such a low number in college football.
Yep.
Those types of numbers always tempt me some way, shape, or form. And it would seem that at some point in time, and it's hard, we love to be proactive, but so much guesswork goes into proactive. You would think that at some point in time, Arizona's offense will break out and give you a 30-point performance. Maybe it's here, maybe it's not, but if I were forced to make a play, I might lean over 49.
What time is this game, BP? Because I believe if it's not, I heard a stat with BYU. This is at BYU, right? This is at altitude. And BYU at night at home is almost undefeated. Like, they are just absolute machines at night. But in day games at BYU, they can't buy a win. If I'm not mistaken, their day record is absolutely brutal at home. What is this, a early afternoon game or a late game?
4 p.m. Eastern, I believe. Correct.
So it's going to be
that'd be 2 p.m. local in Provo. I don't know what. Yes,
5-14 straight up they are since 2019 in day games at home. They are 28-3 at night at home. Veno, you're shaking your head. What are you thinking, man? What are you thinking?
In the business, they call that a massive dichotomy, Joe. I mean, there's no arguing those numbers.
Wow.
Certainly, again, technical trend would point you directly at Arizona. In that case, you're getting more than a field goal.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Does drinking not start till 9 p.m. in
I don't know.
I don't think you can drink in Utah. That's the problem. And also, there's all those wives running around. Maybe they haven't gone to sleep yet. That's why they struggle during the daytime,
Makes sense.
Joe,
Yes.
real quick here.
Sure.
Let me just say, I remember last year, Adam Trigger showed us a video from a BYU college hoop game. God, I wish I could remember. It was so hysterical, though.
Yes.
There were babies everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Some woman actually handed the kid to him, and she went and got a soda or something, and she's like, "Can you hold my kid?" He was holding the kid. It was a very disturbing experience, but there were a ton of kids in there.
Enthusiasm.
What in the world is going on here?
It was nuts.
Yes, the whole thing was out of control, but I think even he pointed out, even the basketball team is not good during the day. So I don't know what it is, something in the water, something going on at BYU in the altitude, but they do not like day games at all. What is it, BP?
Just one thing. BYU is one of 3 teams in the country. Army and Pitt are the 2 others to be perfect, both straight up and against the spread coming this weekend at 5-0. So that is one thing to consider. BYU has certainly, to you and Rob's point earlier, that it's way better than anyone expected. I still don't think they're a top 25 team personally, but we shall see this weekend.
This is infuriating Arizona. I mean, how you can beat Utah on the road and then get your ass handed to you by Texas Tech is a little strange, but okay. We shall see if the curse of BYU day game continues here. We'll go around the horn real quick. BP, what do you got rolling over on your page at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, complete Saturday card has just been locked and loaded. It is, before we went live here, 3 4% best bets. We were 3-0 last Saturday, Joe, in college football, 5-0 overall on the weekend. The best bets in college last week were Texas A&M. Man, you wish they could all be that easy, as they absolutely annihilated Missouri. And then we had Washington against Michigan, another one of those travel situations in the Big Ten. So you got 3 best bets, 29-14, Joe, all football this season. That is number 1 at WagerTalk.com. And do not forget about that graphic, your favorite graphic. Mark Zeno and I, you buy 1 3-day pass, you get the other guy free of charge this weekend. 2 handicappers for just $69.
Yeah, I would encourage people to go check out the Morning Wager today. handmade the graphic myself, so I think the graphic with him and Zeno is well worth just logging on to watch this morning's morning wager. Do yourself a favor there. Drew, what do you got rolling over at WagerTalk.com? We still got baseball going on, college, NFL. What's going on there?
Absolutely, Joe. I got a lot going on at Wager Talk, and I got a life tip out there. I know you guys know this, but if you have a baby and you see a young to middle-aged man with a drink in his hand, do not hand your baby to that man. I know from personal experience, it's not a smart decision for you and your family. And as the man that's been handed the baby with a drink in my hand, it's very awkward. It really is, guys. It's not a situation that's enjoyable. So just life tip for you out there. That's what
happens
I would
a lot to you, Drew, huh?
I'll say, my wife says the same thing about me too, Joe. I'll tell you right now. The same thing about this.
It's like, listen, man, am I getting paid to babysit this kid while you go get a drink? Like, what's going on here? Absolutely not. I'm with you, Drew.
Yeah, it's happened more than you would think, and it's a very awkward situation. It's very uncomfortable for anybody with a drink in their hand. Anyway. WagerTalk.com, absolutely, Joe. It's been over 70% the last 2 weeks, over 60% the last 6 weeks in college football, and got a 5% max limit going tonight, Thursday night football. So, check that out if you're watching live, watching on the replay on Thursday. Also, the Friday, Saturday cards coming in. NFL's been great as well. So if you're looking for the long-term package, we got the all access through the rest of the calendar year. That's until New Year's Eve. You get a huge discount, over $500 off all the plays, all the sports. That's college football, NFL, Major League Baseball. Oh, by the way, college basketball is right around the corner, and it's always good to get in on that. So, check that out. All inclusive. Drew Martin, WagerTalk.com, Joe.
Go get it done, Drew. How about it, Veno? What do you got locked low? You got WNBA Finals coming up as well here, Veno. What's going on there?
Yeah, I'm all over this cross-sport package tonight, Joe. We got it covered. Major League Baseball, WNBA Finals, Minnesota Lynx and New York Liberty. College football, one of the 3 games I liked especially. And, Joe, you were talking about college football team totals earlier, and now that Rich Rod's 54 is out of the way, maybe Clemson's is the next best bet. Rich Rod came through very easily for us last night. Also, NFL here, Seattle, San Francisco. Some crazy person in the schedule department decided to have Seattle play 3 games in 16 days. So good luck to the Seahawks there. But we've got it all covered for you, up and available right now, WagerTalk.com on my homepage, and a Saturday best bet, which we took advantage of on $5 Tuesday. So those who got in real early back on Tuesday, hopefully we get the best of the number here, and still available. So go ahead and grab it. Once again, that's WagerTalk.com.
There you go. Done. Love it. Don't forget, guys, back again tomorrow, another edition of the College Football Kickoff Show. Bring your questions. Make sure you drop them in. You can join us live again, 1:15 Eastern Time is when we'll be back. You're checking it out on the replay. Again, don't forget to drop your questions on the games in the comment section. We'll be checking them out right up until kickoff. We'll get you any answers we can prior to that. But we learned a lot here today. We don't pass off young children to guys with drinks at sporting events. That was a good life tip there. Bryan Power certainly knows his giant cocks and his Chanticleers. Very nice there, Bryan. We appreciate that. And Rob Veno wishes he was never on this show. So it's a pleasure, guys. Always. We'll be back again tomorrow. Give us a thumbs up on the way out. Thanks again, guys. Cash those tickets. We'll see you again tomorrow here in the College Football Kickoff Show. Not you, Bryan Power, though. Absolutely not you. But we'll see everyone else. Everyone else we will. God damn it, you sick son of a...